Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
It is wonderful to be here. I'll take this out. Good with standing in place. I've had the great privilege over the last couple of days of having a wonderful conversations with a number of you and actually having the opportunity to see in real life and in real time the work that's happening on the ground as you express it, as well as what's happening with the operating partners. And as a board member, our job is simply to try and act as stewards to help make sure that we hold space and hold a vessel for all that work to occur. And I thought it'd be important for all of you to see all the different board members that are here. So if I may, if I'd ask every one of the board members that's here in attendance tonight to stand up, I'd really appreciate it, just so you all can be recognized. Over on the left is Siobhan Taylor, who is our newest board member. Some of you, all of you, know Siobhan. She's subtle, she's hard to notice, quiet, reserved.
How kind of you.
Likes sugar on her spaghetti. We in our bylaws have a provision that says we have to have alumni on the board. But even if we didn't have it, we'd have someone like Siobhan, because there's no way that we, who haven't been through the program, haven't administered the program, haven't worked the program, could possibly know how to do what Public Allies does without having alumni on the board. And so her presence, as well as that of Leif and others, really adds flavor and dimension to what we do and is indispensable, so we couldn't be happier that she's here. I thought I'd talk just for a couple minutes, and I would have brought my phone to keep the timer up, because I know Adrian will hold me off the stage otherwise. So just look at me with wherever he is, those eyes. Yeah. Right? If I go too long. But I wanted to talk a little bit about three things: change, fear, and intentionality. And to lead off, of course, I'll just start with this. Looking at me, there is no doubt that pretty obviously I was raised in Wisconsin.
Racing?
Yeah, go figure. Leif and I know way back. There's a point to that. My parents came to this country and decided that they would settle in Wisconsin. Immigrant story. And while we did not face, as Indians and Sikhs, systemic racial and economic prejudice, it wasn't easy. And I vividly remember at the age of 9, when my father had saved up enough money to buy a little piece of land and build a house in Racine, and Leif, you don't know this story, as we had just finished building this house, the neighbors, several neighbors, actually blockading the street so we couldn't drive in to our house. Didn't quite understand what that meant, but I knew it just didn't feel good, right? Fast forward, shortly after 9/11, I had to travel for work, and the plane landed, and a very nice woman in front of me got up after the flight, and she looked at me and she said, "Thank you for not being a terrorist." I said, "Thank you for not being a terrorist." True story. And today, there's talk about deporting Muslims and and I'm not Muslim. I'm not. But not that it matters. But it's the same issue. But I don't have resentment about the fact that people tried to block the driveway, or that someone said, "God, I hope you're not a terrorist," etc. I've got a little different perspective on it now. And it's that change creates fear. We are wired as animals, and I'll use that phrase because I just came back, great blessings that I have to have been in Africa among just wonderful people, but also been on safari to see animals in the wild, and we are all wired, whether we think we're predators or not, we're really prey animals. Let me tell you, if you're out there and you're in a vehicle and there's no sides on it and there's no roof and you've got a lion 2 feet from you, you quickly figure out what it means to be a prey animal. And fight or flight takes over. And what you notice in the wild, or when your fight or flight response gets activated is that you're sensitive to every subtle change. I mean, one blade of grass moves in a little different direction and suddenly you're alert. And fight or flight is just that, right? Fight or flight. And we see violence occurring. We also see fear occurring. And it's a difficult thing. You know, change is happening all around us, and it's creating a lot of fight or flight. Just for the moment, imagine yourselves if you were part of the old guard, right? So you retired, like a lot of my clients. I work in the banking industry, so a lot of my clients, you retired and you amassed some wealth, and every rule of engagement, every norm of society, every foundation of what you grew to understand exists as the gospel has now changed. You have an African-American president, it's likely going to have a female president. You've got multiracial families. You've got marriage equality among same-sex individuals. You've got transgendered activism. I mean, everything that you took as being the way you understood the world worked is now upside down. That can create a lot of fear. And it can create a response where you basically have a massive nationwide panic attack. So who's got the Xanax? Right, that's what I think about. And in an operating partner meeting that we had today, the great pleasure of talking with Greg from our great city of Pittsburgh here. Thank you, Greg. And I shared some of these thoughts, and he shared them back to me. And I can't think of another organization better equipped to help an entire country navigate all of the fear and all the challenges that are arising than Public Allies. Right? Problem is, you can't talk to someone if they're in a fight or flight response. You ever try to talk to a child that's freaked out, or someone who's really having a panic attack? You can't. There's no rational conversation. So you got to bring it down, right? You got to have a real rational conversation. And so, tell me an organization that talks about bringing different groups into a space, into an inclusive space, in a collaborative way, to talk about the assets that exist, not the deficits, so that we can all be advanced. Anyone? This is our time. This is really important. This is really important. Because the fear that's out there, and I won't name candidates, I won't name specific parties, but the time that's in which we live, there's a lot of fear. And that fear can lead to violence, or it can lead to an opportunity where people see an outcome for all of us that leads to benefit. And I think that that's what we're called to do. That's why you're all here. That's why this is happening now. That's why credit to the strategic planning process that occurred last year. We have equity as our mantra. But let's not forget that within equity, we need to make sure that we're talking to everybody. Because inclusivity, right on that board outside there, is one of the big words. Inclusivity. We got to figure out how to do that too. Right, as we write social injustice, economic disadvantage, systemic racism, we got to be inclusive in the process. I want to take a second to talk about 10+1 self-care and how we do that. And I think it comes from awareness of each other, and intentionality. That's where the intentionality comes in. Energy, not to get woo-woo, but look, I'm okay. So energy is a big deal, right? And so how do you take someone from a fight or flight state and kind of chill them out? So we're doing a little fun thing here. You know, there's a hand that always appears in all of our logos, right? You all have seen it forever. And if you go to the website, right, you'll see it says it's a Native American tradition, and it represents the community, the hands, and then there's the rays that represent the power and the energy that comes from them. But there's the hand. How many of you have heard of the Hamsa hand? Show of hands. So this hand symbol, I saw in Africa just 3 weeks ago. All over the place. You'd see it all over India, you'd see it all over Asia, Buddhist tradition, you'd see it in the Native American cultures. This is something we've known for a long time. Do you know that there are more nerve endings in your hand and fingers than there are in any other place in your body? And I know you're thinking other parts of your body, but trust me, there's more in your hand. Okay? Is that bad, Adrian? Was that bad? So we're doing a little exercise. And my wife would be so happy because she's a former ER doc who left that to do alternative medicine. I want you to take both your hands and with your thumbs, press in the center of the palms for about 10 seconds. Just keep pressing it. Just keep pressing like this. Everyone see this? Just keep pressing like this. Okay? And then I want you to feel for a moment, sort of like the pressure where it was and a little bit of buzz. Now I want you to bring your hands pretty close together and stay close together until perhaps some of you may feel some kind of connection between the two. And then if you pull them apart a little bit, it almost can sometimes feel like there's a rubber band connecting them. This whole idea of energy that we all have isn't just woo-woo. We're made of energy, right? You are powerful. All of us in this room have that energy. The thing is, are we taking responsibility for the energy we bring into a given room? So I challenge you, I'm asking you, all of you, I'm actually throwing it out there that each of us has to take personal responsibility for the energy we bring into a space. Because if this can happen, and if those rays can get sent out there, what energy are we sending? Are we sending energy of inclusiveness or not? Are we sending energy of positivity or not? I think this organization kind of knows where that should be, and I think our opportunity is to do the same. So my hope is in all this, and I'll stop talking, is that we can overcome the fear from the inevitable change that's occurring, because candidly, that ship has sailed. Right, in 20 years, this country's going to be less white than not. Already feels that way in certain parts of the country. It's great. But the change is here. Change is going to come. Change is already here. Fear is going to rise. And I can promise you this isn't the last gasp of fear in resistance to that change. So be mindful, be thoughtful, be intentional. Use the resources, be inclusive, and let's try and counteract that fear with the positivity that we all know exists, and try and bring everyone to the table so that we can actually talk about how we all win and succeed together. And I'll just close with this last thought. Our new mission, our vision, a more perfect union, and a diverse leadership to sustain it. We can be a more perfect union, especially with all the beautiful faces here. So thank you.